if you're working in an open floor space, you're not in your own office, right? You're in a cubicle or whatever. Do you take a private call or do you go do that somewhere else? I can't tell you the numbers of times since the cell phone age. I had a friend who would be texting while we'd be out eating. And I'm like, dude, do you not get how rude that is? Get some manners.
So, first article, pretty interesting. It's returning to the office question mark, because a lot of companies are starting to do that now as we enter the new phase, if you will. And it's an article about in the Business Insider about keeping these workplace etiquette tips in mind. So it's a whole article about what to do when you go back to the office. Now, yeah, being in my mid 60s, I pretty much know what to do because I spent most of my career in the office.
Yep.
But we have we have a lot of people that were hired or coming out of college during COVID. They COVID babies in business, and
right.
And when I first read this article, I was like, why are we talking about this? But it's like, you and I were talking about, well, this is actually a real thing. So take it away, and I'll add color. But it's sad to say, because of what we were dealing with, that this is actually something we should be mindful of.
Yeah, it came as a surprise to me, which is why when I read it, I sent it off to you straight away, because I thought, this is actually something that people have to think about now.
Right.
And like I said, people like you and I who did work in offices, even though it's been quite some time.
Yeah.
Longer for me, because I've been, out on my own for over 20 years. But the fact remains, we were in offices, and I think we generally knew how to behave in an office.
Sure.
So, there are people, to the point, these Gen Zs who were getting out of school and getting jobs in remote work. They don't know anything else. Right.
Right.
So I think it's kind of interesting to talk a little bit about not just what people have missed, but how, any of us as leaders should be handling that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was one thing to demand, as companies are doing. We've talked about it at nauseum. People returning, forcing people to return to the office. But for those who've never been in an office, gosh, maybe it would make some sense to have a call with your direct manager to say, hey, here's what you should expect.
Yeah.
Here's what we expect of you. Here's what you should expect of us. Depending on the business that you're in will really depend on how you dress. Right. I mean, there are still industries, I think, that, get dressed up at work.
Yeah.
Formally. And then there's tech.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there needs to be probably some awareness training around it, because and it is what it is. And I agree with the article of sort of when we start getting back into the office. And I think we talked earlier. I said, when you're wearing pajamas and t-shirts for 5 years or whatever it's been, even for us, it takes like okay, I got to reestablish what do I need here. Also, may have to buy a little wardrobe. I mean, in 5 years, things can be out of style or not fit, whatever. So there's a lot of things going on here that we're not really thinking of. And, the wardrobe is one, and obviously is a big thing. And, that's a culture issue, and that's from the down, the top down. And I think that's the case, whether it's pre-COVID or now post-COVID or whatever it's going on. But reality is, it's always been like that. It's a culture. How does your CEO dress? How does how does your manager dress? And, you emulate that. That's the way the culture is. I believe what I did. So, but I think that the article goes a lot further, where they're talking about etiquette in the office.
Yes.
The ultimate, which pisses me off when people use the speakerphone in public or in a restaurant. It's those kinds of things, just to be
crazy.
mindful and be aware, right? Have your common sense with this stuff. So.
Well, and who knows, like I said, what these people have grown up doing.
Right.
So that's where I say, however your company's going to say to you, here's, as we come into the office, we just kind of want to remind everybody that there's some etiquette. Yeah. And, the point of what, if you're working in an open floor space, you're not in your own office, right? You're in a cubicle or whatever. Do you take a private call or do you go do that somewhere else? Right. I mean, I can't tell you the numbers of times since the cell phone age, I had a friend who would be texting while we'd be out eating. And I'm like, dude, do you not get how rude that is?
Right.
Get some manners. You don't answer the phone at the table. Or if you do, you excuse yourself and you walk out.
Right. If it's really that important.
If it's something that you must take.
Well, I had a rule in my team.
Yeah.
Forever. That was, we would be in the parking lot going into a client, and I would say, everybody's cell phone in their briefcase, out of sight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in their satchel or in their pocketbook, whatever it is.
And on do not
And
disturb.
the customer would never see,
Uh-huh.
the customer would never see the cell phone.
Yeah.
Because, studies have proven that over and over again. You lose 70% of the trust on the other side of the table. Even if your cell phone is off and turned around where you can't see it, just having it on the table, 70% less trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to cite that study all the time and say, look, we're going to, so that's a common thing. A lot of people don't know about that, so maybe write that down. But that's true. There's a study. I think it was Yale, I think, did the study, or Stanford. And I'll tell you, it's true. And it's known fact that if you have your cell phone out, and like you said, you're texting at dinner or whatever, you make it very clear that you're not the most important person
That's
in
right.
the room. There's something more important than you, and I need to take care of it. And that's just not a good thing to do. When you're building relationships with customers, you're serving your customer, you're serving those people under your charge, your community, your church, any life and business. What this article is about, the business, but these things are for life too. You want to be mindful of how you're talking to people, the language you use, and you have empathy around your relationships. And those are all things I talk about all the time.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when they brought up, the first time actually seeing your coworker in person.
Yeah.
After, seeing them as a virtual head and shoulders.
You have legs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you've got legs, you've got a whole body. And to be cognizant of what you might say to them when you see them. Oh, I didn't realize, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It might land in their world as, because they're maybe different than you expected.
Yes.
Right. Or, maybe since last time you saw them in person, they've, put on 20 pounds or whatever that might be. Somebody's issues might be, right?
Yeah.
And it really depends on, in my opinion, what that relationship is like at that point. I'll never forget the first time you and I met after knowing each other for, I don't know how long. It was in New York City.
Yeah.
And can you remember, did we hug each other?
Oh, yeah.
Or shake hands? Do you remember?
Yeah. We hugged.
Yeah. So, and that was perfectly appropriate.
Yeah.
Right. So I think people have to be cognizant of what that relationship is. And it might just be also that we were both in sales. We had already developed a really great, relationship over the phone. So it just felt natural. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and for somebody else, that might not feel natural.
But you just said it. That's it right there. It's got to be natural.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in London, everything was over Zoom, and then then we did the back to the office once in a while. I had to be as the leader, I had to be so mindful. I didn't look like I wouldn't do that. Oh my gosh, you're shorter than I thought you were, or taller than I thought you were, or rounder than you just don't do that, right? No. It's like it just wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter because you had an image, and highly unlikely that they're going to fit that image when you see them, when you're only seeing the top of it, So it's like, okay, that's cool. Everybody has their thing, but I think you just have to be really mindful of the human connection and the human interaction. Coming back to work after so long, there's going to be. Oh, by the way, that's the other thing I wanted to say. There's got to be a little grace as well.
Yes.
Because there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some glitches. Somebody's going to say something like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were," blah blah blah, right? Or, "Oh, I didn't know you were," whatever. Who knows? People are going to say stupid things. I say stupid things all day long. Yeah. And it's just that. But we've got to give each other a little bit of grace because this is new territory, as you said, for a lot of people. Look at a lot of these college kids coming out. They went to school online too, so they haven't even, interacted with their own generation, and now they're going to work and they're interacting with people like us, right? And they're like, "Whoa, oh my gosh, what's that all about?" So there's a lot going on here. I think that it transcends generations. I really don't. You know me. I never pigeonhole just one generation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that. I think everybody's dealing with this. Like I said, if I had to go back in the office in a suit every day, I'd probably have to go buy a couple of shirts and maybe a
Right.
new blazer, a couple of ties that aren't 1980. But that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
right? That's what's going on. But I think the etiquette thing is big, and I think it's big no matter what, and it's big on Zoom too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the same thing holds for Zoom, by the way.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, some of what we're talking about were things that were actually happening when I was in an office in the 90s.
Yeah,
Like people leaving food in the refrigerator for weeks on end, or somebody talking too loud on the phone. I would get accused of that. I had an office, but when you have an office mate, you can't be screaming on the telephone,
no, no,
right? Or any number of other things that it could be, or when you're at a social gathering, you're still at work. I mean, I can point to so many times, we'd have kickoff meetings at the
mm,
beginning of our quota year, or we'd be on our quota club trip, and some idiot that I worked with would always get wasted.
yeah,
And I'd be like, dude, really?
yeah.
And there was always negative consequences. Not
Well,
necessarily from the coworkers, but from a spouse,
yeah,
partner. Like,
yeah,
what were
yeah.
you thinking?
Right,
Drinking that much,
right.
you know, at, at a work thing? I mean, really? What are you, 10?
Exactly. We mean the kickoffs and the quota trips. There was always one person that left early on a plane, and we just never found out
Really?
why. Yeah, yeah. Where'd they go? They went home. We don't know. Whatever. Move on.
Somebody who always went home early on the plane.
Yeah, you just
That's
don't want to
really
be that
funny.
person, and
Yeah.
and you said it, and it's something that I lived my career by, and it's I'm always working.
Yeah.
It I'm always being professional no matter where
Mm-hmm.
I am, even if it's a social setting or a
Mm-hmm.
sporting event, or it doesn't matter, because what happens is those lines that you can't blur them, and
That's
even
right.
though you could be, I've been at concerts, right? I've been, we went to the F1 and the Pink concert and Imagine Dragons. We're all like, we're at a concert, and it's like it's still new in my head that okay, we
Mhm.
may be at a concert, but I'm working, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, there's no question. I've always sort of said for myself, um, I mean, and this really goes regardless. I basically have a 2 drink maximum,
Hmm.
right? Especially if I'm driving. But and sometimes it may only be a 1 drink, depending on where I'm driving to or whatever.
Yeah,
And it's just using that same common sense when you're with with people that you work with, because people are really judgy. They will judge and assess, judge and assess, and judge and assess.
yeah, and they'll
And you're
do
the
it
one that's
whether they
gonna
say it out
end
loud
up
or
looking
not.
like a schmuck.
Yeah, no, you're right. They're right. They'll judge you whether they say it out loud or
That's
not,
right.
right? And of course, I would say fortunate now, being sober 32 years. I didn't have to worry
Right.
about that for a long time. Um, and that's the other thing is, when you're in these work events and you're coming in a lot of celebration. There could be some celebration. Hey, we're back in the office. Let's have a happy hour.
Yeah,
And you've got to be comfortable. If you're not a drinker, you got
that's
to be
right.
comfortable with that as well. And that's
Mhm.
another whole thing to get used to. You might have gotten sober during COVID, and now you're going back after only a few years of sobriety,
Mhm.
or you might have gotten clean. I don't know. Whatever you're dealing
Yeah.
with, we get a lot of mental health issues here, right? You're
Mhm.
dealing with anxiety. You've been dealing with depression. Now you're going back to the office. This article doesn't talk about. And I think that's the big elephant in the room that no one talks about. It's you know we got people dealing with stuff that you can't see. They don't have a sling on their brain, as they say.
Mhm.
It's not a broken arm, where you can see it. And we didn't even talk about that in this article. It doesn't even
Right.
mention mental health.
Well,
But
and you're right. And the sort of the 2 verboten topics, politics and religion,
yeah,
you
right,
know,
right, right.
just shut your
Stay away
mouth.
from them. Yeah, yeah.
And
There's no place for either one of those in the workplace, and I that's my opinion, and I
yeah,
will
I
welcome
agree.
anybody who wants to debate it. But I don't do it in my business. I don't
Yeah.
do it at all.
You know,
I refuse. So
yeah.
I think it's really important to, and you know that about me. I
Yeah.
don't talk about it, and I just think it's I I want to always focus on the positive. I want to focus on the love, and I want to focus on the unity, and that's what I want to focus on. That's how I live my life every single day. It's important to me. And when I come, and people that come back to the office, if they come back in the office under my charge, I am going to be very mindful to lead with empathy and be mindful of where they are emotionally as well as physically, and where they are in their life journey. It's really important because we can't just say, "Oh, return to the office. Here you go. Here's your desk. Have fun," because we're dealing with all kinds of multi-generational issues and beliefs, and we have to address them head on. And that's being empathetic. That's being mindful of the fact that they may not know that you don't pick up the phone and make a personal call, or you don't put it on speaker, or you don't do this and don't do that. I mean, and you don't have to be negative about it. There has to be some kind of orientation training. Hey, we're back in the office. Here's a few things that you may want to consider. It's not like, here's our mandate, here, and then it's up to them. If they're going to be assholes, then, they're going to be assholes. There's not, I don't think you can train somebody out of being a jerk.
No. Well, that's pretty hard. So, I think that, one thing to remember, and I haven't heard anybody say this in a long time, but you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Oh yeah.
And
we'll be but a goodie.
You're right, exactly. And I think that even though somebody may think, well, I know, gosh, we've been, coworkers for, the last 2.5 years over Zoom, and we've never gotten together. And now we're getting into the office. I just think that that's something that you might want to think about. The other thing is, okay, I lost it. Hopefully it'll come back to me. I hate when that happens. That would be my senioritis at work.
Well, look, I think we've done well with this one. I think that this is something that you and I have dealt with personally, and I think the overarching theme of this, to wrap it up, is that let's all have a little grace, and realize people are coming from different places as they re-enter the workforce as an office setting, and still lead and work with empathy. That everybody has a story, everybody's dealing with something, and this is just another example of take it easy. Don't be, lighten up, as they say, and give people a chance to give you that impression.
Yeah, I have to unwrap it because I remembered what I wanted to say.
Go for it. No, go for it. Yeah, say the last word. What is it?
Gossip.
Oh, gossip. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't want to leave without mentioning that.
Yeah.
People who you think in the office may be your friends, may not be your friends. Ask me how I know. Okay.
How do you know?
Because trusting to tell somebody something and finding out it's been told to someone else, whatever that might be. I learned that lesson a long time ago. And, none of us is perfect. I will still make a mistake from time to time, but not when it comes to my business, certainly. That'll happen more in my personal life when I'm not paying attention. But, really, really important. Don't gossip around the office where there is no surer way to get your butt in a sling.
It's true. And that's a culture too. That's a culture thing, and it has to come down from the top, right? They have to do the same thing and not gossip. And there's no reason to do that. It doesn't help. I agree with you. That's a great way to end it, actually. No gossip. Yeah. Keep your how I say, keep your stuff in your own sandbox, to say it nicely.
Thanks for listening to Evolving Your Workplace After Hours. I'm your host, Carol Schultz.
And I'm your co-host, Rob Swymer. Don't forget to click follow to hear more. And please leave us an honest review and rating so we can continue to improve and bring you more great stories.
Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.